Hey, sports fans, how's everybody out there doing? William Martin coming at you one more time here on YouTube with another edition of the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge Podcast. It's been 5 years since the Raiders bid farewell to Oakland for the bright lights of Las Vegas, and the same horrible product that we've seen the Raiders display each and every Sunday for the better part of the last 2 decades continues to be rampant in Sin City. The Raiders are 2 and 11 with their only two wins coming this season to begin the year over the New England Patriots, and then, of course, another victory against the Tennessee Titans. 2 weeks ago, we saw the Raiders make the Cleveland Browns look like one of the top teams in the NFL. Okay. And after losing that game to the Browns at home by 2 touchdowns, the Raiders backed it up with a pair of losses within their division. First to the Los Angeles Chargers, and then this past Sunday at home to the Denver Broncos. And you got to wonder, okay, is there any hope for the silver and black to get things turned around? Now, they brought in veteran head coach Pete Carroll. He's in his first year with the Raiders, okay? But I look at this team and I see the talent or lack thereof. And plain and simple, the Raiders really need to be treated like an expansion team because there's really not a lot of talent there. You've got veteran defensive end Max Crosby. You've got tight end Brock Bowers, who has star potential in the NFL. And then you have running back Ashton Genty, who was their first round pick this year. After that, you basically can have any other of the other 50 guys on this team that you want. Now, one of Carroll's first moves with the Raiders was to trade for veteran quarterback Geno Smith due to their familiarity with one another from their time with the Seattle Seahawks. And albeit that Smith was able to have some success, the only success of his NFL career in Seattle under Carroll, when the two of them were there, he's 35 years old now and he's looking more and more like a guy whose best years in the league are behind him. Now, we saw Geno Smith a couple of weeks ago get sacked 10 times by the Browns. He was then taken down 5 more times in the game against the Chargers, and then 3 more this past Sunday against Denver. And you look at Geno right now, and he is on pace to get dropped 60 times this season. Of course, he went out with the injury yesterday, or pardon me, Sunday against Denver. But I do expect Smith to be back on the field at some point this season. But nonetheless, the Raiders are in need of a talent infusion, and they need it so bad, okay, that I do not see this issue being fixed in one offseason, whether it's through the draft along with free agency. You look back to the Josh McDaniels tenure as the head coach of the Raiders, and just like it was during McDaniels' tenure with the Denver Broncos, he really did a job in a very quick period of time on this Raiders roster as he quickly destroyed what John Gruden was attempting to build there. Now, you look at the Raiders' new home, Allegiant Stadium, okay, it does not give the Raiders a true home field advantage. When I look at Allegiant Stadium, I look at basically the same design for a lot of these indoor stadiums now in the NFL, which are the new craze. And on top of that, what you have out there in Vegas is basically a theme park. And I said it was going to be like that from the jump because guess what? Got an NFL game on Sunday. Opposing teams' fans will use that for a weekend to come out to Vegas and party. And that is what we are seeing. You look at what we saw this past Sunday when the Raiders lost to the Broncos. Okay, it was basically Invesco Field at Mile High West. Okay, and it's like that when the Chiefs come there. It's like that. We saw it earlier this season when the Chicago Bears made the trip west, and it's going to be that like that for a lot of clubs. The Raiders do not have a true home field. Okay, it's one of those where you can color be surprised on this because the NFL and Raiders team owner Mark Davis simply tried to force the notion of football in Vegas down our throats Why? Because they were chasing the dollar. And you see it right now. At 2-11 for these Raiders, it is not that far fetched to see this team finish this campaign 2-15 or 3-14. And that, is not really going in the right direction, especially when you figure that this team was just 4-13 a year ago. You look at this year's version of the Raiders, wasted money on Chip Kelly to be the Raiders offensive coordinator, and that falls on Pete Carroll because he brought him in. We saw Chip Kelly get paid $6 million, okay, to leave a national championship team at Ohio State. But with all of that said, Pete Carroll fired him after just 11 games as the Raiders were 30th in yards per game under him. And now the Raiders have dropped to 31st as only the Tennessee Titans have fewer or are averaging fewer yards per game this season in the NFL than Vegas is. It's one of those where, on top of that, the Raiders have only scored 20 or more points 5 times this season. And I'll tell you like this, you're not going to win a lot of games in the National Football League if you cannot score points. You ask yourself, is there any hope that the Raiders can improve in order to close the gap in the AFC West? Like I said last year, the coaching room in this division got a lot better. Okay, all of these coaches have championship experience, but you still need a talent to go out there and win. And we saw last year, every other team except the Raiders made the postseason from the AFC West. Clearly, Denver's going to be there this year. The same can be said about the Chargers. Kansas City's hopes at this point are fading and fading fast. But nonetheless, all three of these teams are still lining up to take their pound of flesh from the Raiders. Okay. The Raiders have had, and this is for the longest time, they've had culture issues inside of their building for nearly 25 years now. And you got to wonder, is there any hope for that change? Something's got to give at some point. Somebody has to be the person. Somebody has to be the adult. Somebody has to be the voice of reason to try to go out there and change things. I know that, it's not just a Mark Davis ownership for the Raiders. We know that Tom Brady is a minority owner. But at some point, something has to give. You have Ashton Genty, like I said, he's your future at running back. You've got to give him some protection up front. And again, it's going to be tough to fix an offensive line completely in just one off season. The Raiders have questions at quarterback. I mean, clearly, Geno Smith is a stopgap guy for the Raiders. It's one of those, he is not the future at this point, or at that point last offseason, he was the best possible option for the Raiders because there really weren't a lot of quality quarterbacks out there. You need help in your secondary. You need help at linebacker. You need help on your D line. You need help at wide receiver. And like I said before, the Raiders just need help. If you're the Raiders at this point, you cannot get to the off season quick enough. You look at the remaining schedule for this team. They're at Philadelphia this Sunday to take on the Eagles, and they're at the Texans in their final 2 home games. They're home for the Giants and they're home for the Kansas City Chiefs. So it's very possible that we're talking about this Raiders team 3-14 or 2-15 at the end of the season. But nonetheless, if you're the Raiders front office, the end of the season can't get here quick enough for you because you have to try to find a way to remedy things. And like I said before, you can't fix it all in one off season because A, the talent is not there, and B, the gap between everybody else and the Raiders in this division is big. Um, I look at it and, like I said, I'll give Pete Carroll the benefit of the doubt because he's done it before. But he's not a miracle worker, okay? And like I said, just trying to fix that talent gap or lack thereof, or the talent gap in particular, excuse me, is going to be a tall task for this team. They've got to build brick by brick and they've got to find something. But clearly, we know one thing: what the Raiders currently have out there and what the Raiders are currently sporting and putting out there each and every Sunday as a team is not capable of getting it done. But folks, that is going to wrap it up. And as always, I want to take this time out to thank each and every one of you for checking out the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. And as always, if you like what you heard and saw in this podcast, you know what to do. Just hit that like button as well as subscribing to this channel. And like I always say, it's greatly appreciated. Also, if you are on the X, formerly known as Twitter, you can check me out anytime at 300 pounds of sports. And like I always say, if you give me that follow, it will be my pleasure to give you that follow right back in return. And that also goes for Instagram, and you can check me out at 300 pounds of sports knowledge. Also, if you are on Facebook, definitely check out the Sports Depot 365. And as far as I'm concerned, one of the better sports groups going around social media. So, once again, fine folks, my name is William Martin, and I am signing off. And I'm saying thanks once again for checking out the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. Be well, everybody.